My mom planned to steal my trust fund. I sealed it hours before my 18th birthday. For 18 years, I believed my mother was the person who would protect me. No matter what happened, she hugged me when I was scared, stood beside me at school events, and constantly reminded me that everything she did was for my future. I never questioned her love. Then just hours before my 18th birthday, I discovered the truth. My name is Emily and my father died when I was only 8 years old. Before his death, he had built a successful construction company and invested a large portion of his earnings for my future. His will created a trust fund that I would gain control over. When I turned 18, my mother was named trustee. Until that day growing up, I was told the trust contained some savings that would help me with college. My mother never gave me an exact number. Whenever I asked, she simply said, "Your father wanted you to have enough to start your life." I trusted her. I had no reason not to. As my 18th birthday approached, however, things began to feel strange. My mother suddenly became extremely interested in my plans. She asked where I wanted to attend college, what apartment I planned to rent, what kind of car I wanted, and whether I intended to travel. At first, I thought she was simply being supportive. Then she started asking questions that made me uncomfortable. "How much do you think you'll need from the trust?" "I don't know," I answered. "You should let me help you manage it." She said, "You're only 18. You don't understand finances yet." I laughed nervously. "Maybe I'll hire someone." Her smile disappeared. "You don't need to waste money on financial advisors. I already know everything about it." That sentence stayed in my mind. A few days later, I asked her how much money was actually in the trust. She became defensive. "Why are you suddenly obsessed with money?" "I'm not obsessed. It belongs to me." She stared at me for several seconds. Then she said something I would never forget. "Your father trusted me to make decisions for you." That night I couldn't sleep. The next morning, I decided to look through some old documents my father had left behind. I remembered seeing a folder in the attic with his name on it. Inside were tax records, insurance papers, business documents, and eventually a copy of his will. I read it carefully, then I saw the words that changed everything. My father had specifically instructed that the trust become fully controlled by me on my 18th birthday, not my mother, me. I kept reading. There was also a clause explaining that any unauthorized withdrawal, transfer, or use of the trust funds for another person's benefit could result in legal consequences. My heart started racing. I immediately wondered why my mother had never told me this. I searched through the folder again. That's when I found something even more disturbing. There were recent bank statements. The trust was worth far more than I had imagined, almost $680,000, but the balance didn't match the original amount. Hundreds of thousands of dollars had been moved over the previous 2 years. I thought there had to be an explanation. Then I saw several transfers. They weren't going to my education. They weren't investments made for my future. They were payments toward my mother's personal debts. Credit cards, a luxury vehicle, home renovations, even a vacation. My hands were shaking. I confronted her that evening. "What happened to the money in Dad's trust?" She froze. "What are you talking about?" I saw the statements for several seconds. Neither of us spoke. Then she sighed. "I was going to put it back." "You took it. I borrowed it without telling me you were a child." "I'm 18 tomorrow." Her expression hardened. "You have no idea how expensive it was raising you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That money was Dad's gift to me. "And I'm your mother," she shouted. "I sacrificed everything for you." I wanted to believe her. Part of me desperately wanted to. But then she made the mistake that destroyed whatever trust I had left. She told me she had already arranged paperwork to move the remaining trust funds into an account she controlled tomorrow. She said, "We'll take care of everything properly." Tomorrow was my birthday. My birthday was also the day I was supposed to receive control of the trust. I realized what she was planning. She wanted to move the money before I could take control. That night I called the attorney who had handled my father's estate. His name was Daniel when I explained what I had discovered. He became very serious. Do not sign anything.
He told me.
I haven't good and don't tell your mother you're contacting me. My voice trembled. Can she legally move the money? Not if the trust terms say what you're telling me. We need to act immediately. The next morning, just hours before my 18th birthday, Daniel arranged an emergency meeting with the bank. I brought every document I had. At the bank, I learned something that made me even more nervous. My mother had already submitted paperwork requesting changes to the account. She had tried to make herself the primary controller of the funds, even after I became eligible to control them. Fortunately, the bank had flagged the transaction because the trust documents required verification. On my 18th birthday, Daniel presented my father's original trust agreement. The bank stopped the transfer. Then something happened that I never expected. The bank manager looked at me and said, "Happy birthday." I almost cried. For the first time, I realized that the money wasn't just money. It represented my father's final attempt to protect me. My mother had spent years telling me she was protecting my future. But when the moment came, she was protecting herself. By the end of the day, the trust was officially under my control. I didn't spend a single dollar. Instead, Daniel helped me establish a proper financial plan. A portion was placed into long-term investments. Another portion was reserved for education, and the rest remained protected while I learned how to manage it responsibly. Then I returned home. My mother was waiting. She knew something had happened. "You went to the bank, yes. And you changed the trust." I didn't change it. Dad's instructions took effect. She looked furious. "You don't trust me anymore." I stared at her. Those two words were harder to say than anything I had ever said. She accused me of being selfish. She told relatives that I had turned against her because I had gotten rich. Some family members believed her. Others asked questions eventually. I showed the attorney the documents and allowed him to explain the situation. The truth became impossible to hide. My mother had used money from my trust without my permission. She had attempted to move the remaining funds before I gained control, and she had lied to me about the entire arrangement. I moved out shortly afterward. It wasn't easy. There were nights when I missed the mother I thought I had. But I slowly understood something important. Turning 18 didn't just mean becoming an adult. It meant finally seeing my family as they really were. My father had left me money, but he had also left me something more valuable: protection. He knew I might someday face difficult choices. He knew people might try to influence me, and he had created the trust so that when I became an adult, I would have the freedom to choose my own future. My mother thought she could control that future. She was wrong years later. I still have the trust. I used part of it to pay for college and build a stable life. I never bought the expensive car my mother assumed I would buy. I never wasted the money trying to prove anything to anyone. Instead, I treated it as a responsibility. Because every time I look at those documents, I remember my father, and I remember the lesson that changed my life forever. Sometimes the person who says they are protecting you is actually protecting their own interests. Trust should never mean ignoring the truth, and family should never be an excuse for betrayal. My 18th birthday was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it became the day I discovered the truth about my mother. But it was also the day I finally took control of my own life. And if my father could have seen me that day, standing in that bank with his documents in my hands, I think he would have smiled. Because his final gift wasn't just the money. It was the chance to become someone who couldn't be controlled by it.